listening to the WrestleHavoc Podcast on YouTube, where we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. We talk all that goes on in the realm of WWE and AEW every week. And now, here's your host, the one that will give you a reality check on pro wrestling, Flamin' Ricky DeReyes. This is the WrestleHavoc Podcast.
AEW Dynamite delivered on all cylinders this week. What's up, everybody? It is Flamin' Ricky DeReyes right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast, here to review AEW Dynamite from June 14th, 2023. We are just a couple of days away from the premiere of AEW Collision, in which we will be showcasing the return of CM Punk as he teams up with FTR to take on Samoa Joe, Switchblade Jay White, and Juice Robinson. Also, he will be having a live microphone, which is going to be absolutely insane because I'm very curious to see what CM Punk is going to be saying. We also had Adam Cole versus MJF on this show. Adam Cole and MJF absolutely delivered a classic, a pay-per-view quality classic on Dynamite, and the match ended in a 30-minute time limit draw. We're going to be talking about that, plus Chris Jericho and Sting, could they be having a future match in the future, as what we saw last night on Dynamite with that Sammy Guevara Chris Jericho segment? I don't know, man, but sign me the fuck up. Of course, we have matches announced for AEW and New Japan's Forbidden Door, as we have MJF defending his title against the ace, Hiroshi Tanahashi, plus Sonata will be challenging anybody in the AEW roster for the IWGP US title, and it looks like he is going to be defending his title against Jungle Boy Jack Perry. So we got MJF versus Hiroshi Tanahashi, as well as Sonata versus Jungle Boy. So definitely Forbidden Door is shaping up to be a crazy card, but I'm absolutely excited about it. Plus, we had the main event. We had the Young Bucks, that being Hangman Adam Page and the Young Bucks, taking on Jon Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli, and Wheeler Yuta of the Blackpool Combat Club. Fantastic main event to end Dynamite. But what happened after the match, holy shit, that was an amazing ending, man. We had just shit go crazy. We had the return of Eddie Kingston, and he faced off against Claudio. Apparently there's some tension right now with Claudio. Jon Moxley now is involved in the mix. A lot of crazy stuff. Kenny Omega comes in, and all of a sudden we had Will Ospreay all of a sudden just beat the shit out of Kenny Omega, hitting the Hidden Blade and hitting the Stormbreaker on Kenny. Absolute insanity that closed off Dynamite. Probably one of the best endings to any AEW Dynamite that I have seen in a long time, and it definitely reminded me of the ending that we saw on the very first Dynamite on TNT with, of course, the formation of the Inner Circle. So we're going to be talking about all this and much more right here on the AEW Dynamite Review, of course, right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the frickin' referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications. Also, the WrestleHavoc Podcast is also available on audio platforms. It is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and Google Podcasts. So if you guys want to listen to the WrestleHavoc Podcast in audio format, it is available on all of those platforms. Plus, of course, as you guys know, with the debut of AEW Collision coming this Saturday, June 17th, I, Flamin' Ricky DeReyes, will be covering AEW Collision right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast. I'm going to be talking, of course, about the return, the long-awaited return, ever since Brawl Out last September, of CM Punk, of course, as he teams up with FTR against Samoa Joe and Bullet Club Golds, Switchblade Jay White, and Juice Robinson. We actually have a full card announced for Collision, so I'm going to be talking about that as well as CM Punk having a live microphone, in which I will be talking about that as well. So if you guys are excited about AEW Collision, check out my AEW Collision review coming June 17th right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast. Also, if you guys had missed it, the episode 17, the main podcast, the main show, the WrestleHavoc Podcast, has been up on the channel for a couple of days now. Of course, I talk about Forbidden Door shaping up to be an all-timer. We talk about possibly Kenta versus CM Punk being discussed for AEW Forbidden Door, and a bunch of other news that have been going on in the realm of professional wrestling. So if you guys haven't checked out episode 17 of the WrestleHavoc Podcast, the link will also be in the description below, as well as, of course, the Raw review, which is up on the channel. That will be up as well in the description below. All right, now let's get on with AEW Dynamite, man. Dynamite this week was absolutely insane. I loved this show, man. There was rarely anything that I had a problem with on this show, man. There was even matches that I did not care about that absolutely just blew my expectations away, man. Of course, we had Adam Cole versus MJF. We had Sky Blue taking on Toni Storm, which, if you really think about it on paper, and as soon as they announced it, I didn't really care because Sky Blue, of course, won the match that she had to get this title shot on Rampage this past Friday. I didn't really care much about the match because I knew Toni Storm was going to win anyway, but that match blew away all my expectations as well. We also had Sting and Darby Allin teaming up with Orange Cassidy and Keith Lee to take on the Mogul Embassy. That was a great match. We had Wardlow versus Jake Hager. We also had, of course, the main event with the Hung Bucks and Blackpool Combat Club. Just a lot of crazy shit happened on this show, as well as a very well-produced video package, of course, of CM Punk in Chicago, just basically working out, and he was talking about what he was going to do this coming Saturday, of course, as we gear up for his return on AEW Collision. So I'm going to be talking about all this. We actually also have a story that came out on CM Punk, so might as well, I'm going to be talking about that, and I'm probably going to clip it for a separate upload as well, because apparently he's going to be showing up on ESPN, or he already filmed an interview for ESPN, and a lot of people just ran with this, and apparently there were some things that CM Punk said that did not, go well with a couple of people backstage in AEW, even though it was monitored via the update by Fightful. I'm going to be talking about that as well right here on the Dynamite review, so be on the lookout and stick around right here on the show. But we're going to be talking about Dynamite. The show kicks off with the AEW World Title Eliminator match between Adam Cole and MJF, the Salt of the Earth, the current AEW World Champion, the devil himself, MJF. I talked about this last week on the Dynamite review, and I talked about how, even though I thought the segment was great, the back and forth between both Adam Cole and MJF was fantastic. I just felt like a program between both two men is done a little bit too early. I genuinely had that belief that, hey, Adam Cole is definitely the guy to beat MJF, and I still think that after this match, but I feel like doing this now is way too early for MJF because we got a lot of other challengers that MJF still needs to, have programs with. But after this match, after what they did, now I genuinely believe that they're probably going to hold off on Adam Cole and MJF, for the next couple of weeks until we have a future program between both men. But that is just what I think. But overall, man, the match between Adam Cole and MJF, holy shit, this was a great match. This was top tier pay-per-view quality, ladies and gentlemen. This match was fan-fucking-tastic. I loved this match. Everything about Adam Cole, he looked great. MJF looked really good. He made Adam Cole look fantastic, as well as MJF. Every time when MJF is in the ring, he will deliver 110%. But we're going to be going through the match. Both men lock up. We get a shoulder tackle by MJF. MJF goes for the strut. Yes, he struts in the ring. Adam Cole almost hits a super kick, but then MJF falls on his ass. Basically, it's Adam Cole tricking MJF. Adam Cole, of course, does the bay-bay. MJF then retreats to the outside, and then he goes to the crowd, and he basically, just kind of snatched a hat off of a fan in the crowd, and it kind of like moved his glasses a little bit. That did not look very good on television. One of these days, man, MJF is going to have a serious lawsuit up his ass if he continues to do this type of shit. After that, once we're back into the ring, MJF goes for repeated stomps on Adam Cole into the corner. He whips down Adam Cole. After that, he goes for repeated stomps, and then he goes for repeated rights on the second rope. MJF gets taken to the outside. Adam Cole goes for a baseball slide attempt, but then gets caught onto the apron. Cole then gets his arm placed onto the steel steps, and MJF just drives his arm onto the steel. After that, he places his hand on the steps once again, and MJF stomps the hand of Adam Cole. After that, Adam Cole, he's down from Adam Cole from behind. After that, he works on the left arm of Adam Cole. He applies a wrist lock. MJF drives Cole using the shoulders of Adam Cole. So throughout the majority of this portion of the match, MJF is actually working, I believe it was the left shoulder of Adam Cole, and that is a common occurrence throughout the whole match. After that, he applies a wrist lock. After that, MJF drives Cole down using the shoulders once again. Then MJF sits down Cole with the driver, and MJF just continues to be in control. He does the Shawn Michaels pose. Of course, every time when Shawn Michaels made his entrance and he went into the ring, he always did that pose. And MJF tunes up the band, so it looks like he's gonna go for some sweet chin music. So after that, he runs into a super kick by Adam Cole. And let me tell you, when Adam Cole hit this super kick, that shit connected so well onto the side of the face of MJF to the point where MJF was actually bleeding from his mouth. Now, I don't know if that was planned or like that was a legit super kick that kind of knocked out MJF, but that shit looked brutal. After that, we get repeated boots by Adam Cole. We get a series of clotheslines by Cole, followed by a pump kick. After that, we get a waist lock by MJF, but then Cole fires back with an enziguri. He then follows up with the backstabber, and then we get a cover by Cole and a near fall. Cole then tries to go for the Panama Sunrise, but then MJF catches him. Cole, after that, counters the heat sinker attempt by MJF, and then he tries to go for the boom, but then he eventually misses. MJF then uses the left arm once again of Adam Cole and hits a shoulder breaker. That looked brutal. But then Cole fires back and hits the Ushigoroshi. After that, we get a cover by Adam Cole and a near fall. Cole catches MJF, and then he drops him down, and then we get a cover and a near fall. At this point, both men are on the apron. MJF picks up Cole, but then Cole fights back for a pile driver attempt. But then Cole is on the middle rope, but then MJF comes in. He picks up Adam Cole once again and hits a tombstone pile driver on Adam Cole on the apron. Once we're back from commercial break, MJF just screams in the face of Adam Cole, "You're nobody, Cole." After that, Cole fights back on MJF. We get a chop by MJF. At this point, both men exchange strikes. We get a poke to the eyes of Adam Cole by MJF. MJF then runs into a boot by Cole. Then MJF goes for a boot of his own, and then we get a pump kick by Cole, followed by a rolling elbow by MJF. We then get a kick to the knee of MJF, and then we get a series of super kicks by Adam Cole. Cole tries to go for the boom, but he misses, and then MJF ends up hitting a lariat. We get a cover by MJF and a near fall. Cole applies the crossface after that. He applies the crossface submission, and then after that we get a roll-up by MJF, and then we get a near fall. MJF then applies the Salt of the Earth submission after that. Cole then rolls through and applies the ankle lock, and then Cole drags MJF back into the center of the ring. After that, MJF transitions into the crossface, and then MJF actually grabs the other arm of Adam Cole, and then Cole gets his boot onto the bottom rope, saving himself from possibly tapping out, which we know he won't. After that, MJF takes Cole to the middle rope for the heat sinker, and then he kicks Cole, and he ends up hitting the heat sinker because Cole actually tried to fight back out of it. After that, we get a cover and a near fall. MJF then exposes the Timekeeper's table, and once he exposes the Timekeeper's table, you know what the fuck he's going to be doing. Of course, he did a similar spot in the Iron Man match that he had with Bryan Danielson at Revolution. So he exposes the Timekeeper's table. He places Cole onto the table. He goes to the top, and MJF hits the flying elbow drop onto the Timekeeper's table. MJF then runs back into the ring. Cole then comes back at the count of 9. So Cole almost gets counted out. MJF then complains to the referee, and this is where the crazy shit kicks in. We get a super kick by Adam Cole on that. And after that, we get a German suplex on MJF onto the apron. After that, Cole goes to the middle rope, and he ends up he tries to go actually for the Panama Sunrise. He actually doesn't hit the Panama Sunrise yet, but he tries to go for the Panama Sunrise, but then MJF just falls down and collapses down to the mat. We get a kick by MJF, and then he goes to the top and stomps onto the shoulder of MJF. After that, MJF argues with the referee, and we get a roll-up by Cole, and we get a near fall. And after that near fall, after MJF kicks out, he actually knocks the referee. So the referee is knocked down. After that, after the referee gets knocked down, MJF gets his title, and MJF throws the belt to Adam Cole. So he's going to pull an Eddie Guerrero. After that, the referee stands up. This shit was perfect. So it looks like Adam Cole is gonna get caught with the belt in his hand, and what happens is the referee collapses as soon as he stands up, which was such a good touch. After that, Cole ends up hitting MJF with the belt without the referee looking, and then Cole hits the boom. We then get a cover by Cole, and we get a slow count by the referee, and we get a kick out. After that, Cole tries to go for the second boom, but then MJF falls down. MJF then grabs the referee, and when he grabs the referee, of course, he hits a low blow on Adam Cole from behind. Or not from behind, but Adam Cole's behind him, but he ends up hitting the low blow. He hits the low blow on Cole. MJF then grabs the Dynamite Diamond ring. And what happens is he almost hits Cole, but the referee catches him. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, I do believe that the referee that refereed this match is the same referee that refereed the Revolution match in the Iron Man match with Bryan Danielson and MJF. So he knows this shit is going down, and he's like, fuck you. No, I caught you, bitch. After that, Cole goes to the second rope, and he ends up hitting the Panama Sunrise. And then he goes for the last shot, a.k.a. the boom, my bad. And we get a cover by Cole, and what happens is as soon as the referee hit 2, and it looks like he was going to get the 3, the bell rings at 2, and what happens is we get a 30-minute time limit draw. Nobody won the match. It's a draw. And what happens is Cole is pissed off. He's pissed off. And what happens after that is he gets the microphone and he says, 5 more minutes. And MJF then gets into the face of Adam Cole, and MJF just retreats, and he takes his Triple B, the AEW World Championship belt from him, and MJF leaves as he escapes Adam Cole in this world title eliminator match. Okay. What a match this was, right? What a match this was to kick off AEW Dynamite. This is the type of shit that I like when I watch AEW, man. We get top-tier quality matches almost every week on the show. It's not like WWE where, very rarely you'd get a great match, but like most of the time it's just like matches that you could either give a shit about or not give a shit about. Very rarely we would get matches like that on WWE TV, but when they do, they end up becoming bangers. AEW, man, holy shit, man. This shit was fucking fantastic. I had my doubts last week, and I still kind of do, but I had my doubts last week because I thought a program with Adam Cole and MJF is just way too early right now. My best prediction for an Adam Cole and MJF, program would have been at least maybe late this year because, newsflash, MJF is not losing that AEW title. He is not losing that championship anytime soon. Now, there's a lot of guys that could take the title away from him, and Adam Cole is definitely one of those guys because I've always stated these past couple of weeks, AEW is preparing MJF to be at least the top babyface in the company because right now, AEW doesn't really have like a top babyface that is like on the level of an MJF as, the top heel in the company. So Adam Cole is definitely that guy to do it, but there's also guys like Darby Allin as well. Who knows? But I always thought a program between Adam Cole and MJF happening now, even though I'm excited about it, was way too early. And it didn't help when they announced that this match was going to be taking place the next week, that being this week, and it was going to be an eliminator match because then you run the risk of possibly either MJF getting pinned or Adam Cole getting pinned. Trust me, Adam Cole getting the win would be great for Adam Cole, but it wouldn't be great for MJF because then it would make MJF look weak. And I completely forgot that time limits were in AEW, and AEW does this very rarely when it comes to all their matches because all of their matches have time limits. And this was actually a 30-minute time limit. So these guys wrestled for 30 straight minutes on television. And the match ended up with a no contest. Both men didn't win the match, which honestly was the best possible outcome. I know a lot of people on social media did not like this outcome, but you need to understand, if MJF lost this match, it would have made his title reign a joke, and it would make him not so credible. And if Adam Cole lost this match, it would kind of derail all of his momentum. And it would basically create the perception of, oh yeah, MJF, he just had Adam Cole fed to him. You can't really have that if you're trying to build up two guys. One guy who is your top champion and the other guy who you're trying to build as your top babyface. So honestly, AEW definitely took the safe place, but they took the most logical place out when it comes to this whole match. Now, what could we be seeing after that? Now, we do know MJF is going to be wrestling Hiroshi Tanahashi for the AEW World Title at Forbidden Door. We know that match is going to be happening, but what is going to be happening with Adam Cole? Is it going to be a scenario in which they're going to be running this match back, throughout the next couple of weeks? Because after Forbidden Door, we have no pay-per-view until All In and then All Out. So what is going to be happening there? We're just going to have to wait and see. But nonetheless, I'm definitely invested in what I saw last night, and I'm definitely interested to see what's going to be happening further down the line, especially after Forbidden Door, because we all know Hiroshi Tanahashi, he is not going to be winning that AEW World Title. He's not. We knew he was not gonna beat Moxley last year. He's not gonna beat MJF this year. But again, it's probably going to be a scenario in which they hold off this program until maybe after Forbidden Door. But even after Forbidden Door, I still do think it's a little bit way too early for this program to happen. But we're just going to have to wait and see, man. This was fantastic. We're definitely going to be seeing a rematch between these two men. We just are. It's pretty logical that we are. Just not now because, of course, we are headed towards Forbidden Door. But nonetheless, this match was pure perfection at the end of the day. And those guys just delivered a top-notch pay-per-view quality match on Dynamite. All right. In our next, I don't want to say segment, but we had a video package on CM Punk. Yes, the Second City Saint, the best in the world. CM Punk, Mr. GTS. So we got a video package from Chicago of CM Punk. They showcased all of CM Punk's accomplishments in AEW and all that stuff. And CM Punk actually speaks. And CM Punk stated that the only thing that is certain right now about CM Punk is that nothing is certain. And it shows Punk working out. I mean, Punk, he looks like he's in much better shape than when he left AEW, in my opinion, after, the whole brawl out incident. Punk is in much better shape than he once was, man. He's been posting himself working out, on Instagram, on his Instagram stories. So Punk is in great shape. Punk continues to then talk, and he says he is coming back for the same reasons why he came to AEW for. He has some scores to settle with. Saturday, the 17th of June, the United Center. He won't know what he will do or what he will say until he has a microphone in his hand. And trust me, he has a lot of things, and this is the key line here, he has a lot of things to get off his chest. What could that mean? Now, we do know Punk is going to be wrestling. We do know Punk is going to be wrestling on the debut episode of AEW Collision. And throughout the time he was gone, he had, I believe it was a torn tricep injury. Now he's coming back. How is he going to favor in the ring? I have absolutely no idea. I'm one of those people that do believe Punk is definitely injury prone, but we're just going to have to wait and see what happens. Now, one of the biggest things is, leading up to this Collision show is that we didn't know whether or not CM Punk was going to be having a microphone and cutting a promo. And from what it looks like now, he's definitely going to be speaking. Most likely, in my opinion, I genuinely believe this, he's going to be opening Collision and just cutting a promo. And when he says he has a lot of things to get off his chest, I'm in the belief, man, could he be talking about the Elite? I have absolutely no idea, because if you think about it, that is the biggest elephant in the room right now. What is CM Punk going to say? Is he going to be talking about the Elite? Is AEW going to go forward with a program with CM Punk against the Elite? Because that is the program that everybody wants to see. And honestly, if they do that, AEW could be on the verge of telling one of their best stories that they have ever told in the company's history. And with the Bucks and Kenny Omega, with them, apparently not wanting to work with CM Punk, they themselves, the EVPs of the company that are actually in contract talks with AEW about signing new deals, because, truth be told, that is a priority as well. But they themselves should know that a program with CM Punk, is just dollars, man. You're gonna make bank off of that program. Now, we had a lot of shit come out today, which I will be talking about on this show, and I'm gonna be talking about that right now. Wade Keller from the PW Torch, he talks about CM Punk on his show, and he states, and I quote, I'm under the impression between now and Saturday that there's going to be something that comes out that media-wise is not going to help matters. Probably. I don't mean to be cryptic, but I haven't heard the details or seen enough to say much, but yeah, I don't know. I just think it's going to be one of those weeks. I'll put it that way. From what I'm hearing behind the scenes in AEW, it's just going to be one of those weeks. Now, this blew up all over social media, and I got pissed off when I read this. Because at this point, when it comes to the media and CM Punk, I feel like at some point the media needs to shut the fuck up. Primarily guys like Wade Keller, primarily guys like Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez. Now, we did get an update from Fightful about this whole apparent situation that is most likely going to go down or that transpired. So apparently CM Punk last week, I believe, did an interview with ESPN. Now, this is an update from Fightful Select that I'm going to be reading to you guys. Like sands through the hourglass, this is another CM Punk story. On June 15th, Wade Keller on PW Torch said, and I quote, "I'm under the impression between now and Saturday, there's going to be something that comes out to the media-wise that is not going to help matters. Probably. I don't mean to be cryptic, but I haven't heard the details or seen enough to say much, but yeah, I just don't know. I think it's just going to be one of those weeks. I'll put it that way. From what I'm hearing behind the scenes in AEW, it's just going to be one of those weeks," end quote. We've learned, and this is the rest of the Fightful Select report, we've learned more about what this is in regards to. Last week, Fightful Select reported that Kenta versus CM Punk was the planned direction for Forbidden Door. Shortly followed that, we were told that Punk, quote-unquote, wasn't thrilled with working with Kenta, and he may come across badly in an interview. However, there's a lot more to this than meets the eye. And that might be by design. That's the key word. And that might have been by design. There are a lot of facets to this that have unraveled since then that maybe have become more cleared. We are told, that being Fightful, that an ESPN interview is supposed to drop sometime soon where Punk was talking about a number of topics. Among those topics was the Elite, and word got back to several on the roster at the June 14th Dynamite tapings, and some of it didn't go over well based on secondhand reports on what Punk said. Of course, could be seen as, quote-unquote, his version of what is true, end quote, but we're told that AEW did set up the interview and monitor things, but that Punk spoke in a way that would blur the lines and create buzz for upcoming shows. Specifically, we'd heard that he answered questions in a way that would make the audience wonder if it was him angling for a story or if he was shooting. Fightful has been told as well that Hangman Page was brought up in a manner that was absolutely not confusing in a work-shoot perspective and were clearly intentional and made very clear that he did not like Hangman Adam Page. Punk said that there were spots in the Double or Nothing match that he felt like Page was shooting on him by chopping him in the face during the match. We aren't sure what eventually will make it into the final ESPN piece, but Fightful has heard that the interview was conducted last week and we're told that Punk was very aware that it could come off polarizing based off of his responses. Recently, we reported that CM Punk was sent a series of documents that protected AEW, which included some non-disparagements. So that was the update by Fightful that they provided regarding this whole situation. Now, when I first read the whole Wade Keller quote on Twitter, I was really pissed off because, you know, if you know something, then you should say it flat out. And that's my belief, because people say, oh, you know, what I've heard is really bad, but then they end up going on and saying, I don't know what it is. Then what the fuck? Why did you say anything? But when it comes to this whole ESPN interview, it looks like, personally, what I think is Punk kind of, and Fightful even stated this in their report, Punk blurring the lines between what's real and what's not real. And my assumption, now I may be 100% totally wrong with this, so do not quote me on this. Could we be on the verge of the beginning stages of CM Punk versus the Elite? If so, whoop-de-fucking-do. I'm absolutely excited for that, because this whole drama that went on, you know, regarding CM Punk, it's like every news story that is coming out about CM Punk, it's always happening at the worst possible time. When Wade Keller first put out that quote on PW Torch, I was so pissed off, and rightfully so in my opinion, because we're literally on the verge of the premiere of Collision, and all of a sudden this fucking negative bullshit has to come out at the worst possible time. Remember a couple of weeks ago on the day of the upfronts when AEW Collision was first announced, and what should have been a tremendous day in the history of the company ended up being a fucking nightmare because of all the drama regarding CM Punk. Everything regarding CM Punk when it comes to news stories now, like, most of it is all fucking negative. But when it comes to this interview, ESPN interview, we're just going to have to wait and see what CM Punk says. Now, from right now, the interview hasn't dropped yet, but when it drops, I will definitely give you guys my thoughts on what I think what Punk's tone was. But we will all know once the ESPN interview will drop, and it's going to be very interesting to see what CM Punk is going to be saying on Collision this Saturday night on TNT. You know, when Punk said in that video package, I have a lot to get off my chest. I'm starting to think, hey, man, I think they're going full-fledged with this Elite feud. I may be totally wrong, and we may be getting something completely different. But AEW, the fans, the Elite, CM Punk, they know the giant elephant in the room. We know what happened in September after the pay-per-view. Everybody knows what happened. Everybody knows what happened. Nobody is blind to this, okay? We all know what happened, and I think they themselves know, like, bro, I know we don't like each other, but we're going to make fucking money off of this shit because this shit's real. And if they do that, I don't know, man. Hopefully things transpire very well, because what AEW needs right now is something that really latches the viewer on, because they're doing that with Blackpool Combat Club versus the Elite, but the fans really want something more, and we already know what that more is, and that more is CM Punk returning and wanting to face off against the Elite. That is what I see happening, but I may be totally wrong, but CM Punk's return just got more interesting after this video package. So those are my thoughts on that. After that, we got a Sammy Guevara promo segment. And, of course, CM Punk, Jesus Christ, CM Punk is still in my head, Jesus Christ. Sammy Guevara, of course, he announced a couple of weeks ago that, of course, him and Ty are now pregnant, and they expect a child. Now, he cuts this promo, and he says, it's been a hell of a ride. He went to the highest of highs, like Ty, of course, being pregnant, and, of course, they are having a girl. So, congratulations to Sammy Guevara. To experience the lowest of lows by falling short in that four-way match at Double or Nothing. But the goal has been the same. He will have a wife by his side, and as well as a baby girl by his side, and the AEW title in the other side. But before that happens, he has to make tough decisions and changes in AEW. And then Darby Allin comes out. And he asks Sammy, and he means this when he says this, congratulations. But he wants to talk about Double or Nothing. He lost that night, and he wants to talk about him. He doesn't know if he can hear these people, but these people are starting to love you. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's kind of a little bit of mixed reactions when it came to Sammy Guevara, so I don't know about that, but it is what it is. But he has a question. Will he stand on his own 2 feet or stand in the JAS? Because if you look at me and Sting, we're side by side. We're equals. We're not greater than the other. But he doesn't have to answer his question now. But he thinks he knows his answer. And then Chris Jericho's music plays and he comes out. Jericho looks pissed. And he tells Darby to shut his mouth. And he tells Darby to stop laughing at me, kid. And Jericho faces off with Sammy Guevara. And he says, you know, Sammy, right now it's just he and him. He asks him a question. For 3 months, he was chasing MJF for the world title. And he never called him once. He never called your mentor, the guy who brought him into AEW and made him a star. If he asked for his help, he would possibly be standing here as the AEW World Champion. And Sammy then replies, well, why didn't you call me? Because if you called me, I wouldn't have, that being Chris Jericho, wouldn't have lost to Adam Cole twice. And Jericho says he's having a lot of delusions, and he will give him another chance, and he will tell him to apologize right now. Sammy then says he is not apologizing for shit. And then Jericho says, you need to remember the dynamic in the JAS. And maybe we need to reunite Last Sex Gods next week to see who your boss is. After that, Darby says he calls himself a wizard. And when he steps foot in this ring, the magic is gone. And then Jericho goes to Darby and he says, "You sure you want this?" And he says maybe Sammy and him should beat the hell out of him 2-on-1. And then Darby says he isn't really alone. And then Tony Schiavone on commentary is like, "It's Sting!" And then Sting comes out. And Sting and Chris Jericho face off. And Jericho has his baseball bat. Of course, his baseball bat named Floyd to Sting. Sting places it down, and Sting does the same thing to Chris Jericho. So, what it looks like, there's a lot of things transpiring in this segment. Number one, when they announced Sammy Guevara, announced for this Dynamite in a segment, everybody immediately thought that this was going to be the night that Chris Jericho is going to turn on Sammy Guevara and excommunicate him from the Jericho Appreciation Society. Because if you think about it, Dynamite was in the same building as they were for the very first Dynamite where the Inner Circle was first formed. So it would have made total sense. But instead, they actually teased it. So they are going in that direction, but they are definitely teasing it. And they're definitely going to do that slow build up to that execution off the Jericho Appreciation Society. So it definitely looks like we're going to be getting a future program between Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara, which I'm 100% down for. A lot of stories. The thing that made this Dynamite very good is that there's a lot of storyline progression. I know a lot of people say AEW does not have stories because of the whole bloodline shit. But the thing is AEW does have stories. They are just, if you compare those stories to the bloodline, there's really no comparison. But AEW does have stories. They're just not as impactful as it is, to the bloodline. The bloodline story is probably one of the best storylines ever told in wrestling. But AEW has been telling stories throughout the past couple of months. But the other thing that they planted was Chris Jericho versus Sting. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but the last time Sting and Chris Jericho were on a roster together was during their days in the mid to late 90s in WCW. Now, Sting was a WCW lifer, but when it came to Chris Jericho, I believe he came in to WCW in, I believe it was 1995 or 1996. Correct me if I'm wrong, because he did, prior to his WCW run, he did wrestle all over the world. Primarily, of course, he came into ECW, and he had a brief run over there, but then he went into WCW. But they never had any programs together. And even in the WWE, when Sting was in the WWE, I believe Chris Jericho was there as well. They didn't do anything together. So Chris Jericho versus Sting is a first-time ever program, and they definitely teased it in this segment on Dynamite. This was fantastic, man. And, of course, we all know right now Sting is in his retirement tour, and he's definitely, I believe, going to be retiring this year. My guess is that they're probably going to be doing Sting's last match at Wembley Stadium for, Sting's last match at, for Allin. But we're just going to have to wait and see what happens. But overall, man, this was a great segment. They're definitely doing, Sammy Guevara versus Chris Jericho in the future. That's going to be a future program. And hopefully we get no involvement of the Jericho Appreciation Society, because it's kind of a common occurrence ever since the JAS was formed. Whoever Chris Jericho feuds with, they have to have all these obstacles, They did that with Ricky Starks, it was fucking ridiculous. Adam Cole, not so much, but still, the match itself just wasn't that good. But if you think about it, when it comes to Sammy Guevara and Chris Jericho, this should be solely one-on-one. No involvement of the Jericho Appreciation Society, because it's getting a little bit too redundant. So hopefully AEW learns their lesson and don't do that. All right, after that, we got the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion Sonata in a video package, and he says he offers an open challenge for anybody on the AEW roster at Forbidden Door. Now, from the viewer watching this, you would think that AEW would keep this a secret, but no. We actually ended up getting his challenger later on this show. But Sonata offered an open challenge for his IWGP World Heavyweight Championship at Forbidden Door. Forbidden Door is slowly becoming just a fucking classic at this point. All right. After that, we got Sting, Darby Allin, Orange Cassidy, and Keith Lee taking on the Mogul Embassy. Again, this was another match that, I wasn't really that excited about. Now, granted, it's Sting wrestling, so it's very rare that we get Sting wrestling, but no, I was not really, anything involving, the Mogul Embassy, I'm not really that, invested in, but holy shit, man, this match was absolutely great. Now, when I go through this match, I'm probably going to botch a couple of the things because this match was so fast-paced, and there was a bunch of spots left and right that I couldn't even keep up. But overall, this was fantastic. We get a double team by Sting and Darby Allin. I believe the show opened up with a double tope by Orange and Darby. After that, we get a Stinger splash on Swerve, followed by a coffin splash by Darby. Once we're back from break, Sting is working. Swerve is working on Darby Allin. Brian Cage tags in. The Embassy then takes out the baby faces off the apron. We then get the triple team and powerbomb on Darby Allin. We then get a cover by Cage and a near fall. At this point, Swerve Strickland is the legal man. We then get a right hand by Darby, but then we get a code red attempt on Swerve. But after that, Swerve catches him, and Darby ends up going for a roll-up, and we get a near fall. Darby tries to tag in, and then he gets pulled back, and then he ends up hitting the stunner on Swerve. After that, Keith Lee tags in. He takes out everybody. We then get an elbow strike by Keith Lee, and then he catches Swerve, and then everybody's on the top for what it looks like a Tower of Doom spot. But Swerve ends up hitting the Swerve Stomp on Keith Lee right in the corner of the ring off the top. After that, we get a cover and a near fall after Cassidy goes for the save. Then after that, Cassidy goes for the Tornado DDT. And then Orange ends up going for the Orange Punch, but then he gets caught by Brian Cage. After that, he takes him down. And then Bishop Khan takes down Darby. Sting goes for the Atomic Drop, and then he tries to go for the Stinger Splash, but Toa Leona takes him out. After that, Keith Lee comes in. He throws Khan to the outside. Lee drops down Swerve. And then Darby ends up going for a coffin drop onto the top, off the top on the outside. Sting fights off Cage, but then we get a clothesline by Sting. Cage picks him up, but then Cassidy ends up hitting the Orange Punch. And this finish was great. Cassidy goes for the Orange Punch, and then immediately after, Sting goes for the Scorpion Death Drop. And we get a cover, and all the babyfaces get the win over the Mogul Embassy. Great match nonetheless. This was fantastic. I loved this for what it was. Pure perfection at the end of the day. I really liked this match. We get the Guns backstage. Of course, the Guns were the ones that caused Ricky Starks the match against Switchblade Jay White last week on Dynamite. And we do not know. Now, we do know Bullet Club Gold right now only has 2 members. It has Jay White and it has Juice Robinson. And a lot of people coming off of last week's Dynamite were asking the question as if, are the Guns a part of Bullet Club Gold? We did not get a single answer from them on this backstage segment. They talk about how they have no idea about last week. They were raised to be polite, and they will also talk about something else. They talk about them. Of course, they are the best brother tag team in AEW. And then, of course, they talk about the Hardys. And then they challenge the Hardys to prove that they are the best brother tag team in AEW. So they went from speculation on, possibly them joining Bullet Club Gold a week prior to now going into a match against the Hardys because they want to prove who is the best brother and brother tag team in AEW. I mean, I don't know about y'all, but I could care less. I mean, let's be honest with ourselves. The Hardys in AEW has been a failed experiment. It really has. The Hard, at this point, I can't really take seriously on anything the Hardys does. And look, I'm a fan of the Hardy Boys, but when it comes to Jeff, especially Jeff, I think it's time to hang it up. I hate to be that guy, but I don't know, man. His run in AEW has been a fucking train wreck. All right, after that, we got Wardlow versus Jake Hager for the TNT Championship. Hager attacks Wardlow when he makes his entrance, and after that, the bell rings. Hager goes for a series of body shots in the corner, but then Wardlow fires back with a series of clotheslines, and then he hits the release German suplex, and then he shoves Hager into the corner, but then Hager gets dropped onto the outside. Wardlow goes for a running clothesline onto the outside. Once we're back from commercial break, Hager goes for the ankle lock. Then Hager goes for the spine buster, but then Wardlow sets up the Powerbomb Symphony. But then Matt Menard and Angelo Parker come in, and what happens is when they come in, Mr. Arn Anderson comes in, and he grabs his Glock, and he points it, straight at 2.0, because he gonna murder yo ass. After that, Brock Anderson comes in for the save. And then Hager slams Wardlow down. We got a cover and a fucking 1 count. After that, we get the Hager bomb countered by Wardlow, but then he clotheslines Hager onto the outside. Wardlow then goes over the top rope, taking out Hager, but then Wardlow goes to the top once again. He ends up hitting the senton, And then he hits the powerbomb on Hager. Wardlow pumps up the crowd, and he hits the second powerbomb, and we get a cover, and Wardlow retains the TNT Championship. Christian Cage and Luchasaurus are on the Titantron, and you couldn't even hear a single word that these guys said until later on. And he threw out an open challenge to Luchasaurus. This Saturday on AEW Saturday Collision, what will happen when his new daddy isn't there to save him this time? And then, of course, he shows Arn Anderson beaten and bloodied down. Like, it's like one moment Arn Anderson is like pulling off his fucking Glock on 2.0, and all of a sudden, you know, he's just beaten down by Luchasaurus and Christian Cage. So it looks like it's official. We are going to be getting Luchasaurus versus Wardlow for the TNT Championship this coming Saturday on Collision. And then, of course, there was a video package shown with Hiroshi Tanahashi, the ace of New Japan Pro Wrestling, and he challenges MJF for the for the AEW World Championship. So MJF is, you know, getting medical attention. You know, he has his ice pack with him, right? And MJF is backstage. Renee Paquette comes in, and she tells MJF that it will be Tanahashi versus MJF at Forbidden Door. And MJF says, nah. He proceeds to shit on New Japan Pro Wrestling, calling them a rinky-dink. He calls them a rinky-dink indie fed from Japan. And he plans on doing the same thing that he did one other pay-per-view last year, of course, that being no-showing the show. And he says, Tanahashi, thumbs down. That shit was so funny, bro. I've always stated, man, MJF competing at Forbidden Door, it didn't need to be against a AEW guy. But it didn't need to be against a New Japan guy, but it's going to be against Hiroshi Tanahashi. It's going to be against a New Japan guy. MJF, the thing that makes MJF so good at what he does is, and I talk about this all the time, he embodies everything that the internet wrestling community despises. He just does. And he does that by shitting on the hardcore fan base, shitting on New Japan Pro Wrestling, all that type of shit. That is what makes MJF so great at what he does, because he embodies everything that is not AEW, if you really think about it. So the fact that he's going to be wrestling Tanahashi, what are my thoughts? It's a great spot for Tanahashi, in my opinion. Of course, Tanahashi is not going to be winning this match. I think it's pretty obvious. Of course, he wrestled Moxley last year for the interim at the time, because this is when Punk was injured, for the interim AEW World Championship. And now he's going to be wrestling MJF. Now, it's safe to say that Tanahashi is not in the prime of his career. It's pretty obvious. I mean, if you watched his match, of course, against Jon Moxley, even though I thought it was great, it was pretty obvious that he was not in the prime of his career. The same thing, I believe he wrestled Daniel Garcia at the Supercard of Honor pay-per-view as well. So, I mean, he's not in the prime of his career, but when it comes to wrestling a guy like MJF, MJF is such an old school guy that he's going to make Tanahashi look like $1 million. And Tanahashi's going to make MJF look like $1 million because MJF is going to sell his ass off in this match. Y'all don't believe me? Just tune into Forbidden Door. Buy the pay-per-view. He will sell his ass off. So, overall, man, I'm excited, man. You know, a lot of people think this match is not going to be great, but, you know, look, MJF is just going to make Tanahashi. He makes anybody, literally, he makes anybody, whoever he wrestles, just look that times better than they already are. So it's going to be great to see, and it's official. We're going to be getting Hiroshi Tanahashi versus MJF at Forbidden Door for the AEW World Championship. Orange Cassidy is in a backstage interview, and he is asked, what does the future hold? And Orange says, you know, it's typical, you know, somebody will walk in and challenge them for the international title. And then what happens? Mr. Zack Sabre Jr., the current TV champion of New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong, he comes in, and then Daniel Garcia comes in, and he asks, where is Shibata? And he says, he will be here, that being Cassidy. He replies, he will be here next week. And Cassidy says, how about Zack Sabre Jr. and Daniel Garcia versus Katsuyori Shibata and Orange Cassidy next week on Dynamite. So we're getting a banger match on the Go Home Dynamite and a possible banger match at Forbidden Door with Orange Cassidy taking on Zack Sabre Jr. Now, what's interesting is regarding Zack Sabre Jr., and I talked about this, Bryan Danielson versus Zack Sabre Jr. was supposed to be happening last year at Forbidden Door, But, of course, Bryan Danielson ended up getting injured. So we all thought, we were going to be getting the rematch, but we're going to be getting Okada versus Bryan Danielson instead. Are we still going to be seeing the ZSJ versus American Dragon match in the future? I have absolutely no idea. I mean, you had, Zack Sabre Jr. even call out Bryan Danielson in one of the early episodes of Ring of Honor on Honor Club. So maybe that match is still in the works, but we have absolutely no idea. But from right now, what it looks like is that we're going to be getting Orange Cassidy versus Zack Sabre Jr. for the AEW International Championship. So definitely I'm going to keep an eye on that because that's going to be a fucking banger match. We got Toni Storm versus Sky Blue for the AEW Women's World Championship. I wasn't really excited about this match, but nonetheless, this match was fan-fucking-tastic. Sky Blue goes after Storm. Sky goes for the crossbody off the top, and then we get a cover and a near fall. At this point, Sky Blue is on the apron, but then Storm misses the hip attack. After that, Sky instead hits a hip attack, taking Storm to the outside. And Sky Blue's mom was actually in the front row, and Toni Storm sprays the spray paint on the face of Sky Blue's mom. So that's some heel heat right there. After that, Sky Blue immediately goes after both Ruby Soho and Toni Storm. Once we're back from commercial break, Sky Blue goes for repeated right hands. We then get the head scissors by Sky, followed by the jumping knee. After that, we get a spinning kick by Sky Blue after Toni Storm gets blocked. She blocked the first kick, I should say. Sky then gets caught onto the ropes and then gets taken out to the outside, but then Toni Storm hugs Ruby Soho after. After that, she takes Sky back into the ring. Storm gets the spray paint, and Ruby sidetracks the referee. So what happens is Sky Blue instead sprays Toni Storm in the face with their own spray paint, and she ends up hitting the code blue, which is basically a code red, but, Sky Blue, code blue, it makes total sense. We get the cover, and the referee is distracted. So Sky Blue had the match won. This match is getting intense. After that, we get a thrust kick by Sky Blue on Ruby Soho. Storm ends up hitting the Storm Zero, and we get a cover and a kick out. After that, Storm applies the Texas Cloverleaf, and Sky ends up tapping out, and Toni Storm retains the AEW Women's World Championship. After the match, Ruby Soho and Toni Storm attack Sky Blue, a common occurrence when it comes to any AEW women's match regarding the Outcasts. After the match happens, of course, the Outcasts are going to be attacking the wrestler that's there, and said wrestler will come out for the save, and that is exactly what happened when Willow Nightingale came in for the save. After that, the heels retreat, and that was that. Overall, great match. Didn't expect a lot of it, but they definitely blew away all my expectations. But the moments after the match where, they attacked Sky Blue and Willow Nightingale came in for the save, literally, this is a common occurrence with the Outcasts every fucking week. It's getting redundant at this point. But overall, great match. We got Hook and Jungle Boy, Jungle Hook, backstage. Talk about how they are hyped, and it's the summer of Jungle Hook. After that, talk about how, he doesn't have a championship, and Jungle Boy is accepting Sonata's challenge for the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. And Jungle Boy says Hook is his best friend, and he asks if he can be in his corner. And when he asked he could be in his corner, the crowd was like, "Aww." That was great. That was great. But it's official. It looks like it's going to be Jungle Boy, Jack Perry, taking on Sonata for the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. So it's not really a mystery anymore because Sonata says, "Oh yeah, I'm going to be issuing an open challenge." And you would expect it'd be a big deal and a mystery opponent all the way up till Forbidden Door, but no, they already announced his opponent on Dynamite. So yeah, it's going to be Jungle Boy versus Sonata at Forbidden Door. Quick run through of what we are going to be seeing this coming Saturday on TNT for AEW Collision. The card for Collision is going to be fucking stacked, man. We got a lot of matches happening. Of course, we got CM Punk. We will hear from CM Punk, and he will be talking on the microphone. And he has a lot of shit to go off on his chest, so there's going to be a lot of shit going down when it comes to CM Punk. And, of course, we got CM Punk and CMFTR, taking out Samoa Joe and Bullet Club Gold's Switchblade Jay White and Juice Robinson. After that, we got Buddy Matthews versus Andrade El Idolo. Yes, Andrade El Idolo is making his return to AEW, and it's going to be in the premiere of AEW Collision, so that match is going to be absolutely insane. I'm definitely excited to see that match. We also got Sky Blue and Willow Nightingale versus Toni Storm and Ruby Soho. Miro is going to be in action. We do not know who his opponent is going to be, but it's going to be a great match nonetheless. Plus, we got Wardlow versus Luchasaurus for the TNT Championship. So that is what we are going to be expecting from AEW Collision this coming Saturday on TNT. All right. We got our main event. We got the Young Bucks, that being Hangman Adam Page, and the Young Bucks taking on the Blackpool Combat Club's Jon Moxley, Wheeler Yuta, and Claudio Castagnoli. This was a great 6-man tag team match. This match was fucking fire. I loved this match, man. Just the spots left and right was just absolute insanity. And after the ending, it looks like there's going to be a lot of twists and turns happening later on when it comes to this whole program. But I'm going to go through the match. Hangman and Moxley face off. Everybody just fights each other. And if I mess up, my apologies. This match was so fast-paced that I kind of messed up a little bit of my notes. But whatever. Everybody fights off each other. We get a triple super kick by the Young Bucks on the BCC. After that, Matt Jackson goes for a powerbomb onto the apron on Yuta. Nick goes for the Escalera onto the outside on Moxley and Claudio. Hangman goes for a running shooting star on Yuta off the apron. Once we're back into the ring, we got a chop by Hangman on Moxley. Matt Jackson tags in. Mox goes for repeated stomps. After that, Matt goes for the spear, and he goes for repeated right hands. Nick Jackson tags in. He hits the crossbody on Moxley. Claudio then gets taken out. Nick Jackson takes out Moxley. After that, he gets caught by Claudio onto the outside and ends up hitting the pump-up uppercut, which is a badass spot, in my opinion, by Claudio. Hangman then comes in. Mox goes for the tope. Matt goes off the top with the crossbody on both Moxley and Claudio. After that, Nick Jackson tags in Matt, but what happens is Yuta goes for a German suplex on Matt onto the outside. We then get the King Kong Lariat by Moxley on Nick. After that, he ends up hitting the pile driver, and we get a cover engineer fall. Once we're back from commercial break, Moxley goes for a slam on Nick, but then Moxley misses the elbow drop. We then get a dropkick by Nick Jackson on Moxley. Hangman tags in, and he proceeds to take out everybody. He hits a fall-away slam on Yuta, but then we get the crossbody by Hangman once again. And then he goes for a clothesline, taking Yuta to the outside. After that, Yuta goes for the tope. Hangman at this point is on fire. He goes to the top, and he hits a clothesline on Yuta. And then we get a cover engineer fall. And then he hits the buckle bomb and a double enziguri combination with the help of the Young Bucks, of course, on Yuta. Matt goes for a series of Northern Leg suplexes on Wheeler Yuta. Moxley comes in. Matt Jackson hits the double Northern Leg suplex on Moxley and Yuta. Nick Jackson goes for the stomp. We get a cover by Moxley. Claudio goes for a series of lariats. We get an elbow by Hangman. Yuta goes for a boot. We got a German by Yuta on Matt Jackson. So we got spot after spot at this point. We get a cover engineer fall. Moxley then tags in, and then he sends Hangman to the steel steps. Claudio, has Matt up. He goes to the top, and Moxley goes for the Doomsday device. After that, we get a cover engineer fall. Moxley drives his elbows down. Moxley then applies the choke, but then Claudio comes in and drives his elbows on Hangman. Nick goes for a senton onto the back of Mox. Nick then gets taken to the outside, but then we get a super kick by Matt. We get a choke slam on Matt by Claudio. Yuta is on the top, and he goes for the splash, but then Matt Jackson counters the splash. We then get a super kick party by the Bucks at this point. Hangman tags in. We get the powerbomb by Hangman. Then the Bucks take Yuta. They go for the BTE trigger, and we get the Buckshot Larry, and we get a cover, and the Young Bucks get the win. After the match, Claudio and the rest of the BCC just attack the Elite. But what happens? Eddie Kingston comes in. He comes in after recovering, and he makes his official return. And what happens? He fights off against Claudio because he still has a score to settle with Claudio, of course. He lost his match against Claudio at Supercard of Honor this past April. After that, we get a back fist. He hits the Hurricane on Yuta, and then he clotheslines Claudio to the outside. After that, Moxley comes in, and he faces off with Eddie Kingston. Of course, both men are apparently good friends with one another because they kind of made up after their feud back in 2020, and they were teaming up with one another throughout the majority of 2021, but they face off. Then the Young Bucks come in. Tension on all parties involved. There's tension with Moxley and Eddie Kingston. Eddie Kingston does not know which side he is going to be a part of. So there's a story right over there. After that, Takeshita comes out, of course, and he hits a right hand on Nick Jackson. And then Kenny Omega comes out, and he fights off Takeshita, and he ends up hitting the V trigger after that. We get the super kick on the Bucks, and then Kenny goes for the Snapdragon, and we get a series of super kicks by the Elite. And Kenny sets up the senton, the somersault on the outside. And what happens? Will Ospreay, of all people, fucking comes in. He hits the Stormbreaker on... No, actually, no. He hits the Hidden Blade on Kenny Omega. And then he ends up hitting the Stormbreaker on Kenny Omega, ending off the show. Of course, that is to build up for their IWGP US title rematch from Wrestle Kingdom at Forbidden Door. And the show ends. I don't know about y'all, but this was probably one of the best endings to any AEW Dynamite this year. Everything about it just screamed early AEW, because if you think about it, they were in the Capital One Arena this week. And the Capital One Arena was the first arena that AEW Dynamite was held in. The first AEW Dynamite was held at the Capital One Arena in Washington, D.C. And holy fucking shit, the ending was just so similar to the formation of the Inner Circle. Just like, without the formation of a group, just like spot after spot after spot, just fucking interference after interference after interference. This shit was fucking amazing. I loved this thing. If y'all want build to Forbidden Door and you guys want hype to Forbidden Door, you had this closing moment on Dynamite with Will Ospreay standing tall, Bryan Danielson on commentary just clapping with Will Ospreay. Just fantastic stuff, man. The involvement of Eddie Kingston. Now, with the involvement of Eddie Kingston, we do not know what the hell is going to be going on. But could he be involved in this feud? Of course, he has a score to settle with Claudio. Could we be seeing a match between Claudio and Eddie Kingston for the ROH World title at Forbidden Door? Or could we be seeing the rematch further down the line at Death Before Dishonor? We do not know. But if you want to stack up, Forbidden Door, I think it's very smart to add that match. But we all know where this is leading to regarding Blackpool Combat Club versus the Elite. We're going to be getting blood and guts. And Kenny did say that he was out of the country last week, and we clearly knew what that country was. He was in Japan, and it looks like Kota Ibushi is going to be coming. Now, I thought Kota Ibushi was going to show up on this show, but apparently not. They're saving that for a future moment, possibly Forbidden Door, or maybe next week on Dynamite. But Kota Ibushi coming into AEW, I think it's pretty obvious at this point. But Eddie Kingston's involvement is something I'm curious about, because is he going to be a part of the Blood and Guts match? I have no idea, but we're going to have to wait and see, man. Tensions with Moxley and Eddie Kingston, that stuff is a separate story within itself, because they can easily run back Moxley versus Eddie Kingston, but the roles this time are reversed. Because if you think about it, the first time that they faced off, Moxley was the babyface and Eddie Kingston was the heel. But nowadays, with the Blackpool Combat Club being heels, we're now possibly on the verge of maybe, this is just pure speculation on my end, possibly seeing a future one-on-one match between Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley. Who knows? A lot of shit went down. A lot of developing stories. You can literally play this story out for the next couple of months, and that is exactly what I really loved about this closing segment. Y'all want stories in AEW? You got them. But nonetheless, this match was fantastic. The ending was just probably one of the best AEW Dynamite endings, if not the best AEW Dynamite ending this year. All right, that was my AEW Dynamite review from June 14th, 2023. We definitely talked a lot on the Dynamite review. Overall, man, this was a great show. I absolutely loved this show. Absolutely fan-fucking-tastic. Of course, we're headed towards Forbidden Door, which is only a week away, which is crazy to think, as well as the premiere of AEW Collision. So be on the lookout for my AEW Collision review coming June 17th, right here on YouTube, right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast. Of course, meet me with the SmackDown review as well tomorrow. So we're going to be talking about a lot, but overall, man, Dynamite was absolutely a great show nonetheless. Very few misses on this show. But yeah, that was my AEW Dynamite review from June 14th, 2023. Please like, subscribe, comment down below, push that bell for notifications, and be on the lookout for more videos right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast, right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the freaking referee would say, ring, ring, ring that damn bell for more notifications. And as always, it is Flamin' Ricky DeRays signing out. I'll see you guys later for SmackDown and AEW Collision.